Hello there, friends and neighbors. Thanks for coming back to my channel. My name is Stella Hendricks, and today we are going to be doing part 3 of Rhinestone Confidential. I don't usually read the entire chapter, but since this is written by my close and personal friend, we're going to read the whole thing. So, Chapter 3, Solo Act. I brushed the snow off my heavy coat as I hung it up in the wardrobe office. The drive to Harrah's had been icy and my tires had slipped a few times on the slick road, but when I glanced up at the clock, I saw I had made it with time to spare. Upstairs in the casino, revelers had begun to ring out 1992 and usher in 1993. I figured that even working all alone for the first time, it could end up being my best New Year's Eve yet, as the holiday was not my favorite. Jostling for his space in a drunken crowd and avoiding unwanted midnight kisses was not my idea of fun. The headliner for tonight was Glenn Campbell. The dance review was dark, so my duties would be simple. Dark is the term used to mean the show or venue is closed. In these early days, Sammy's was rarely dark, as the review and the headliner took different days off. This meant the showroom was open 7 days a week. I had just threaded my needle and started repairing a hole in a pair of fishnet tights that had been left from the night before, when George, the dressing room attendant, brought me a rumpled dress shirt to press. "When you're done, please give it back to me, and I will return it to Mr. Campbell," he said as he shuffled off to his office located at the foot of the stairs to the stage. I draped Glenn Campbell's shirt over the ironing board and made sure that the iron setting was for cotton. Running the iron steadily over the sleeves, I pressed lightly over the wrinkles in the elbows, taking care not to linger too long. A scorch mark would be disastrous. George scared me a little bit. He seemed gruff, but I knew he had a soft side. Nightly, he would unlock one of the dressing rooms located near the stage area to let in one of the dancers to complete homework for her college courses. The dressing room for the female dancers was located far down the hall and away from the backstage dressing room, and was shared by up to 7 girls. It was not a quiet environment for studying. With 3 hours in between the early and late shows, there was time to nap, read, eat dinner, or prepare for life after a dance career on stage was no longer viable. One dancer used her time wisely and in the end ended up becoming the chief of financial officers of Harrah's. In only a few years from now, I would cash my paycheck. It was her signature that was stamped on the front. Another dancer before my time ended up becoming the deputy district attorney for Washoe County. The dressing room attendants' responsibilities were to take care of all of the needs of the headliner during their engagement at Harrah's. The dressing rooms were to be stocked with coffee, water, juice, and soda. Headliners, or stars as they were called, were also given their choice of liquor, and room service provided finger sandwiches. Taking the performer's stage wear to valet for dry cleaning pickup was also a nightly assignment. Most importantly, the attendant needed to oversee dressing room security and to safeguard the backstage environment from unauthorized intruders. When sitting in his glass-enclosed office, foot traffic was easily monitored. Even casino security was barred from backstage. Between the crew and the dressing room attendant, we were our own security. The main door to the dressing room area was locked and coded, so if a fan did manage to make their way into the dressing room area backstage, the secure door would hopefully keep them out. But one night, it failed. During my second week of training, I was sitting alone in the wardrobe during the show. I was startled to see a casino dealer in his shiny vest walk by my rooms. "Where are the girls?" he asked. "I'm looking for Trisha. I want to say hi to her." I don't think you're supposed to." Suddenly, George came charging towards us. Suddenly, surprisingly spry. "What the hell are you doing back here?" George barked. "Is this a friend of yours?" He glared at me. No, I don't know this guy. I've never seen him before." George then marched the interloper straight out of the coded door. "And don't come back in here again. This is a private area." I wondered who had let him in, and I sure hoped George believed me. Turns out he was a stage door Johnny, just looking to hang out with one of the dancers. The next night, Skip reiterated in the nightly meeting absolutely no one was allowed backstage. I don't know who let him in or if someone gave him the code, but we're changing it tonight, so make sure that you don't give it out. The line between the acts and the crew was thinly drawn. We were friends and friendly, but had to be professional. It was an odd situation because friendships were formed. Our bosses made it clear that we worked for Harrah's and our customer was the performer. Over time, I learned not every employee would navigate the boundaries successfully, including myself. While I was figuring out the ground rules for my new job, I was also learning new tricks to help maintain the costumes. They took a beating every night between hours under the hot lights, getting soaked with perspiration and the strain of the vigorous choreography. Tonight, I squirted the armpits of a heavy velvet robe used in a Queen number with water sprayer filled with vodka. Vodka helps neutralize the odor of sweat that permeates non-washable fabrics. This costume had a hula hoop sewn into the hem that made it gently sway as the singers skated around the stage in roller skates to Bohemian Rhapsody. It had been fun watching them try to skate gracefully in the weighty costume. Wobbling forward with arms held out for balance, they leaned their heads forward and tried to sing into the microphone and skate at the same time. But by opening night, they had it mastered. I saturated the fabric and was waiting for it to dry when Shirley, one of the two big females on the crew, one of the two females on the crew appeared in the doorway. After chatting for a bit, she offered some sage advice for me. Be careful of the bands that come through here, she said. The guys will be looking for one thing and one thing only. You don't want to get a bad reputation with the crew members. They will find out and look down on you for being easy. I really appreciate your help. I was more than happy to have someone guide me through the sometimes murky waters of this new world. Shirley tilted her head up at me. At 5'0", she made me feel tall, whereas I always felt short next to the dancers who towered over me in their dance heels. I've worked here over a decade, and it can sometimes be rough fitting in, she said. You'll be okay, just watch your step. And with that warning, she turned from me, her long blonde hair swinging as she picked up her little stool she sometimes carried to reach the high shelves or curtain pulleys when executing her cues on stage. I admired her tenacity, as she was determined to hold her own with the crew. Despite her height and being female, she succeeded. Though Shirley was married to a comedian that she had met when he was performing at Harrah's, I knew she was right. I appreciated the gesture, but unfortunately, it was too late. One of the male dancers, Spencer, suddenly had a lot of repairs for me. It seemed to me he was purposely combing through his costumes looking for any loose thread, and here he was at the wardrobe office again, clutching a black dance sneaker. He flashed a brilliant grin and pushed his golden hair out of his eyes. Hey, I think I might need a new shoelace. It's starting to fray. Spencer held up a perfectly good shoelace. Squinting, I could make out a bit of fuzz. Sure, let me see what I can find. He stood in my office, shirtless, watching me search through the supplies and trying not to notice his rippling abs only inches away from my face. What are you doing after the show? He asked. Want to go to Visions with me? Visions was a popular gay dance bar known for having the best DJs in town. I'd been there a few times previously for girls' night out. Why not? I thought. It's not like I have anything else to do. My social life was practically non-existent after a recent breakup. My impression of Spencer, other than him being very attractive, was that he seemed to be a bit of an outcast. He was attention-seeking and not popular with the other dancers. We met in front of the showroom doors after the show. We took my car since he didn't have one. Inside the club it was dark and I could just make out his handsome face, patterned by the strobe light. The music was thumping loud in my ears. I need a drink. He motioned me to the bar. After ordering us both a beer, he turned to me. You got this? Sure, I guess. I rummaged around in my purse for my wallet. We took a few gulps of our drinks and then headed back to the dance floor where he started gyrating to the electric beat. His moves were smooth and I did my best to watch him. I had been dancing in clubs since I was 16 and the disco craze had started. Yori's was a dance club in Reno that allowed under 21 patrons on Sunday nights. My friends and I would dance under the strobe light to Brick House, drinking mocktails until 11 o'clock curfew. I went back to our table and took a sip, wiping the froth from my mouth with the back of my hand. I turned around to see a mustached man approaching us. "Hello, Spence," purred the man, his silky black shirt open to the waist. After planting a lingering kiss on Spencer's cheek, he took his hand and said, "You're looking sexy. Dance with me." They thrust their hips together as one, raising their hands high over their heads to an admiring crowd that had gathered to watch them and cheer them on. Spencer was clearly popular here. I checked my watch. It was getting late. I was ready to go. I couldn't wait any longer for him to leave the dance floor, so I interrupted him mid-shimmy. "Hey, I'm leaving. Do you have a ride?" "Oh no, I want to go with you." I pulled up to his apartment and he invited me in. I drained the last of my beer, which only added to my questionable reasoning, and followed him to the bedroom. We had a little makeout session on the bare mattress that I knew I would regret later. I finally roused myself and picked my way through the days-old fast food wrappers littering the floor, nearly knocking over an overflowing ashtray in my hurry to get out. Ah, dreadful! After that night, I realized Spencer needed a shoulder to cry on and tried to offer him friendship, but his problems were too overwhelming. He came to my office near tears after being late to work once again. "I feel like everyone here hates me," he said. "I don't know why." I gave him a tissue and wished he would leave. He wiped his eyes and started to walk away and then stepped back into the wardrobe. "So, do you want to go out after the show?" "I can't. I have to get up early." Spencer left the shows a few weeks later, and I wished him the best. Aw, poor Spencer. We hope you're doing okay. I was slowly getting more confident working alone without Joan trailing me to ensure the cues were done properly. I was starting to make friends with the crew, but sometimes the backstage atmosphere felt like being back in high school. For both the cast and the crew, the pecking order was clearly defined, and those that did not fit were ostracized. I saw new crew members who felt the need to be included immediately instead of stepping back and letting friendships and work relationships happen naturally. The crew had been together for a long time. They were a tight-knit group, cliquish even. I could sense that this group would be hard to impress, and just being myself would be the best strategy. Most had been Harrah's employees for the past 10 years, many for 20 plus. Harrah's had a reputation for loyal staff because Bill Harrah treated his team like family. Once hired, no one ever seemed to leave. One stage tech opened the room when it was the original headliner room and had worked with many big-name stars. An insecure Q member was not a welcome addition backstage. The old-timers could smell the stench of bravado a mile away. I mostly avoided this scenario being female, but for a recently hired male employee trying to bluster his way into the crew, it was a huge mistake. One new tech tried to ingratiate himself with the current headliner act to impress the crew. I cringed as I overheard him trying to banter with the star. "Yeah, I'm learning sound and I'm going to be running all the shows from now on," he bragged. The star nodded politely. "I play guitar too," he went on. I watched as he followed the star into his dressing room, still talking. Oh no, I thought. During training, we were specifically told not to infringe on the star's privacy. Backstage was a sanctuary for the performers where they could relax. I wasn't surprised to hear the star complain later. His personal area was invaded by the very person entrusted to protect it. The crew member was counseled by his supervisor, but to no avail. He just didn't get it and continued the unacceptable behavior. He was soon let go. My confidence was growing every day, and eventually, I didn't need the cue sheets I had made for myself when shadowing Joan and Elaine. I was helping the performers in and out of their costumes for their quick changes almost by second nature now, and felt fairly confident in making the necessary repairs on the costumes. My most dreaded costume was made of dryer hoses. Who knew the collapsible hardware item could have sex appeal? Bulky and hard to grasp, I cringed, hopefully inward, when this costume was dropped off in my office. For the late show, high voltage opening number, the male dancers were clad in white spandex pants and a vest-like half top with dryer hoses forming a giant loop over each shoulder. The dryer hoses were fragile with the aluminum stretching between the coils. When the aluminum tore, I would first join the coils together for a quick repair that would not show from the stage, but eventually the hose would be noticeably too small, so I would have to replace the hose. We had a stash of dryer hoses to repair the costumes, but it was an awkward, tedious job sewing the first coil to the costume, so I put it off as long as possible. Here is a picture she has included of the sexy hoses. There was another unusual costume frequently in wardrobe for repairs. It was stunning in its simplicity, and I thought it was pure genius. This closing number costume was worn by both the male and female dancers, consisting solely of bands of elastic worn on the arms and legs, along with the black G backstage, the abbreviated G string, black G backstage. We abbreviated G string to just G, as in, I need to get this G washed. Yeah, strippers do that too. The bands were evenly spaced apart, and each one had a silver metal O-ring sewed into it. When the elastic started to stretch out, I needed to tighten them at the seam and strengthen the stitches holding the ring to the band. I admired the ingenuity of the costume team and started to look at hardware products with new appreciation. The Greg Thompson production, GTP Reviews, had opened in Sammy's showroom over a year ago in January 1992, and now in February 1993, the shows were due for a revamp. I was about to experience my first show change. Luckily for me, it was not a full show change. My initiation to the intensity of putting in a completely new show would be less stressful because only a few numbers were changing. Excellent! Oh, that was so short this time. All right, that was chapter 3 of Rhinestone Confidential, and I am super excited to dive into it again next time. Thanks so much, friends and neighbors. I'll talk to you on the flip side.